My number 10 greatest L. 2020 was an interesting year. All right, we had the COVID pandemic, and I was sent out to work in May with a construction company of bricklayers. And they were awful to me. They treated me terribly, made waking up for work miserable, stressful, and my heart was pounding in my chest every minute of every day. It was a terrible way to live. Luckily, I was only there with them for a month and a half. And even though, the idea is you want to work, you want to make money, I used to love when we'd get rained out. I did, because I didn't have to go and be around these people. They were truly, truly terrible. I was out of a union labor hiring hall, and this is basically what came out. I got a personal call from our BA to go out with these people, and it was rough. But there was one time I was kind of operating the giant LOL forklift, and I was on a street down in Niagara Falls, and every day they were changing my LOL out. Every day I had a different size LOL. I had a different, it just one day it was really big, one day it was small, and everything changes. The metrics, the weight capacity, all that stuff changes. And one of these pieces of trash convinced me to overextend my LOL arm, and I actually ended up tipping forward. I've never told anyone this story really, but I ended up tipping forward. The LOL was so extended that the load I was carrying was on the roof, and it was the only thing that kept me from spinning up, and it was horrible. And the guy on the roof was just laughing, and I was so fed up. I was like, it's BS, like every day. And granted, that's my fault. I didn't really want to be there, but I had to work. But two, I also should have known better. But this experience with these trash human beings made me realize that the work I was doing, I didn't belong. This was not what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And by the end of December of that year, I realized I had to make a change as far as where I worked. I just couldn't mentally deal with it anymore. It was not good. I didn't like the people I worked with outside of my dad, which was one. I got to compliment my dad. He took good care of me. Finally, nepotism worked in my favor when I did get to work with him, and my uncle, and some other great people. But for the most part of it, I just did not enjoy my time doing this, and I knew I had to make a change. And now I work at a nice factory job. Some days are better than others, but mostly good days. And my insurance is much better. Health insurance. I can actually afford health insurance properly. And enough so to have a kid. But this is just the destiny. This is the great lesson that this failure of damn near tipping my LOL over and working with these pieces of garbage led me to this factory job that I do like the work. I like that I get to be alone sometimes and just go, just work. All right, just lead me to my work, and I know where my paycheck is coming from every week. That stuff is like that. That's a great L. That is a great loss. That became one of the greatest W's. I would not have been able to be a father if I still had to use that insurance. I would not have been a great dad if I had to be stressed out like I was in that job. So that's where the L's, the losses becomes a lesson, because I knew I had to get out of there, and I knew that I had to find a job that was better suited for me, that I can like and succeed at. All right, my number 9. This was one of those L's, those losses that I should have never been. So I've talked about my fandom as an Indianapolis Colts fan here many times, and they made it to the playoffs in 2020 against the Buffalo Bills, which is the local hometown team. I got so wrapped up that year. There's just so much went on, right? There's with COVID, and I was getting stressed out watching games. Passionate, but to an unhealthy degree. When the Colts made the playoffs with my guy Phillip Rivers under center, I was elated, excited, and that was where the excitement ended. Because knowing a lot of very passionate Bills fans, they made my life living hell. I couldn't post about how excited I was without Bills fans hounding me, telling me how trash my team was. But I got so wrapped up in this thing that I legit losing sleep, because if in my eyes, in my mind, that the Colts had to win this game to stick it to all these Bills fans that had gave me a hard time. And ultimately they lost. Very good game, much better game than I think a lot of people hoped it could have been, or hoped it would have been, especially on Bills fans. But I never forget the stress that was put on me and that I put on myself. I realized after this loss, and I was sitting in my studio, I watched the game by myself. I didn't want to be around anybody. And I'm sitting there at the end of this game crying my eyes out like a big baby over a football game, because I'm like, damn, I'm the Colts fan. When the Colts lose, all the fingers are pointed at me, because that's I guess the passion of being a sports fan. But the problem was that I made this unfun for myself as well. I seen the Colts' success as my own success. I seen the Colts' failures as my failure, when that isn't the case. All right, I can separate the two. I can be a fan of the Indianapolis Colts, and now I have to look at it like that because they're so bad, that my happiness or sadness cannot be based on what this team is, because I don't play for the Colts. I just root for them. There's nothing that I could have done personally to affect the result of that Colts versus Bills game. And that was a hard lesson I had to take, that maybe I got to chill the heck out when it comes to rooting for sports teams. And since then, there's been times where they very much frustrated me, but I have a better grasp on my emotions when it comes to football games now. And it doesn't affect me as much, and it shouldn't. When people like to say, oh, your boys did this, I'm like, I don't play for the Colts. The Colts signed your team signed Daniel Jones. I don't work for the Colts. Sorry. Like, I had to learn that lesson the hard way. And what this taught me was to learn to control what you can control. One of my very, very important pieces of advice to my younger self. And that is how I carry on with myself every single day. All right. If it has nothing to do with me, I do not give it an ounce of mental energy. I don't. And in turn, I think that this can help me become a better dad. That's my number 9. Number 8. I've had a weight issue basically all my life. I've been, especially post high school, it's been bad. I've gotten big and I've shrunken down, gotten big again, shrunken down. And it's embarrassing. It is. I hate it. I hate that it's like normal for me to kind of go up and down. And I'm at that age now where I got to start worrying about my heart, and hopefully my heart not exploding, or some other deal. Okay. Every time I lose weight, like, losing weight's really not the problem. It's maintaining a weight. I feel like I'm either going down or up. I'm never steady, at least not since high school. And I've learned a lot about myself through my various weight losses, how to manage it better. And the last time was heartbreaking. I went from 347 pounds to 250 pounds in 9 months or so. And things started happening. My mental health took a turn for the worst, and I started to put the weight back on. My work pulled my overtime, and the way people treated me, like I let people get to me again, and my weight piled on, and I got back up to 325. And it just sucked when you lost all that weight. You're super proud, and then everything changes, reverses course. I had to learn through my various weight issues, one, that to not do it for validation too. I got to do it because I want to do it. I found that in my early days of losing weight that I had to post about it on social media. Hey, look at guys, look at how I did. Look at the likes. Yeah, I'm motivated now. And I think that's a wrong way to go about it. There's people begging for people to lose weight with them. And I don't understand that. They're like, no, do it for yourself and do it in silence too. Like, I don't feel the need to broadcast my weight journey, my weight loss. I don't feel the need to tell people, yeah, I'm doing this, because I feel like the more I tell people, the less I want to do it. And then I feel like me telling people and just, yeah, this is what I'm doing. It's deflecting. Like, I like the privacy of losing weight on my own terms. Like, I don't have to tell people that I'm doing it. They can just see it, if that makes any sense. And that's led to, again, understanding my body, understanding how to lose weight, and the failures of putting on weight. I've learned how to maintain my weight, and I've also learned to just do things in silence. It's okay to not broadcast everything, okay? Because people look at that. It actually runs into my number 7. But like being too open on social media, venting, stuff like that. When you put yourself out there, when you tell the world everything that they need to know, there are people hate watching what you do. And every time like these bad things compile, these bad things happen, they're looking at you like it's a win for them. When you admit self-defeat publicly and you're trying to get attention, if you post about this loss that you had, something bad, financial hardship, or how something annoys you, people who dislike you use that. They have it as ammunition against you. And in their own minds, they might not openly express it, but it's a win in their eyes. You don't have to vent. You don't have to be so open about this stuff. I've talked about social media quite a lot on this show in the 2 months that we've done this. And this one is so great because I used to post all the time. I used to share every single opinion I had, and it's come back to haunt me in every single way. People have used my social media against me, from a friendship perspective, from a relationship perspective, and used it against me and hurt me. Simply put, because I put out too much. I like my privacy now. Not everything needs a post, or not everything that's on my mind needs to be shared, and it's nice moving that way. Number 6, we're gonna go back to my high school days. I was not really athletically inclined through most of my life. It took me a long time to get there, and the irony of me playing sports was that every single sport that my parents got me into, I didn't last long doing them. But wrestling was the first sport that I chose, that I openly pursued, that I wanted to do because it sounded cool. I liked pro wrestling, and this seemed like a natural evolution, to maybe get to that point someday. But my senior year, I knew going into it that this was my last chance there's no getting time back, right? There's no redos. This is my last year of high school wrestling, and I want to be good at it. I put in a lot of hours. I've pushed aside friends to and opportunities for socializing because I want to be the best version of myself. I went away to a camp the summer beforehand and spent a week, right, away from home, trying to wrestle better. All the tournaments that my parents paid for and sent me on. This was the culmination of that. If I did nothing with it, then it was all for waste. But there was early on in the season, there was a wrestler that I came across. I'm just going to call him Angelo. I'm not going to reveal his last name because privacy and whatnot. But he was the best wrestler I've ever been on a mat with. This kid was so technically sound, aggressive, smart, just fantastic. And I loved talking with him. I loved picking his brain. He was literally the king of like going to any of these wrestling tournaments. I travel with him in the off season on some trips. But I used to love, like, he was the king. He used to walk around and he had a singlet bag. He was like singlet Santa. He'd pull out this sack of singlets and people were trading and buying singlets off of him and whatnot. But anyways, he was a couple weight classes below me, but he moved up to wrestle me. It was my last dual match against Niagara Wheatfield. And in that match, I got exposed. Like it was like my stance was terrible. My shot to take, for takedowns was bad. I kept it close with him, or he let me keep it close with him. He ended up winning 10-8, but in my recollection, like, to me, that is my favorite match that I've ever had, because that match changed my fortunes for that year. All right. I lost. I felt like I could have won. But if I had cleaned some things up, if I had a better mentality, I was so intimidated. His aura, like, intimidated me. I remember, like, I didn't know if I was going to wrestle him or not. And then I'm warming up for our match and I see him running in the hallway. I'm like, oh, crap. I got to wrestle Angelo. But I went out there. He won 10-8. But the next day at practice, I reviewed the film and all my teammates were helping me out. They're like, this is what you did. Like, you left yourself open for him to take you down and all this other stuff. And it was the most important match of my high school wrestling career, because after that, I went on a tear. I was winning tournaments. I didn't lose again until the state championships, where I lost 3 matches and finished out my career 6th place in New York State. But I have that loss to Angelo to thank for that. And I've never, ever told this to him. I've come across him a few times since high school. He may never watch this video, but I want to thank him, directly, indirectly, for helping me out and becoming the best version of myself in high school as a wrestler and giving me something I could be proud of to look back on. So that's my number 6. Number 5. I'm going to put losing my first podcast studio. In 2019, I was so eager to find a place to record and call my own, right? So I didn't have to record and do my podcast stuff at home anymore. And I jumped headfirst in this little dump of a spot that should have been, I don't know. It should have been condemned, probably. And the guy for a small room charged me $300, no heat, no Wi-Fi, bad electric, and just a very dark, gloomy area. And I jumped at the opportunity of this. And a couple months later, there were some issues. I had brought alcohol into the building. I had allowed alcohol into the building for a fundraiser that we were going to do. And it turned into this huge fiasco. And basically, we didn't use that studio anymore. This fundraiser we were doing, we were told to cease and desist. And I was so upset, we just stopped using. I'm like, we're done. Turned in my keys, and we left. And fortunately, a couple months later, we came across a Craigslist ad for a studio 3 times the size of this crappy room that we had, and about the same price. They had heat, it had Wi-Fi, it had electric, it had running water, and it was everything that I had hoped, that I wanted originally. It was a lesson in patience and to not jump at the very first thing that came at me, right? I was just so excited and eager to find a spot that I just took the first thing that I had. And I also learned that, like, it was meant to be, because a couple months later, we did have our own studio. And the failings also at that place, letting some things slide. I had to take more ownership of my room. If my name was going to be on it, if I was going to be paying most of the rent, I had to be a little bit more stern and a little bit more tough. And it led to some butting heads with some very good people and friendships that ended that they didn't really have to, that I wish they hadn't. But I had to be a bit of a hard ass because I didn't want to lose this new place, this second opportunity. But losing my first podcast studio was a huge step in growth for me as far as from a leadership standpoint, because I had to hold down the fort. And my second studio lasted almost 5 years. My first one, I only had it for maybe 2 months before everything happened. Learned a lot of accountability and a lot of leadership skills that hopefully will translate to being a great father. But that is my number 5. Boop, boop, boop. All right, my number 4. What am I going to put? Some of these are a little out of order, but there's for good reason. Let's go to losing friends over the course of my life. Let's do that one, because I have talked at great lengths about the amount of friendships that I've had that ended terribly, ended with not talking with people. It all culminated in the summer of 2022. And it was hard. It's hard to deal with when this vicious cycle of having friends and then losing them in the most horrific and destructive way had been eating at me. And I read this book, I believe it was called Journey to Ixtalan, which had been recommended to me by another friend. And I read this line in it about friendship and being with people, and it really changed my perspective on how I have been. All right. In those moments of anger where me and my friends, went our separate ways, had our blow-ups, I pointed the finger exclusively at them for their actions, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend like those folks were completely innocent. But I'm also now realizing and retroactively taking a lesson is that I wasn't completely innocent either. All right, it was one summer, and I was so angry all of the time. I went on this Facebook deleting spree, and there were some very tough choices to be made, and I was and then I sat and thought, I'm like, why am I like this? Why am I so angry? Why, if this is a repeated process, then it can't just be everybody else. There has to be something that I'm doing that is pushing people away. So I ended up, after reading this passage in this book, this paragraph that broke me about being friends with people until they've outgrown their usefulness and then pushing them away, which in a certain way, in a certain perspective, it kind of applied. I reached out and apologized to some of these individuals, and some of them replied and accepted my apology and forgave me, and things went back off course. Some people seen it, told everybody else that they had seen it, but didn't reply back, and that's okay too. I completely understood in the moment, but it changed the way I look at how I deal with people. I'm a little bit more protected, a little bit more guarded now about who I allow into my circle. I'm a little bit more guarded as far as how much I give to people, but I'm hyper aware of how I treat people. Some people I just can't get along with certain people. There's some people that in my eyes are just not great, and I can't be around them because they disrupt my peace. But I also am aware of how my actions, how my behaviors, how I carry myself can affect others now. I'm a lot more serious. I'm a lot I don't like to pick at people. There's a lot of things that I did prior to 2022 that definitely pushed away people. And now I'm a little bit more like, I feel a little bit more even keel. But it was a necessary lesson. Losing friends will change you, especially when it's happening repeatedly over and over again. My number three, number three, is my credit card debt, and actually just overall debt that I experienced in that summer of 2022. I was so embarrassed. It was August. July? No, sorry, it was July. And my parents said that there was a collections letter put on their door. And it was, of course, in reference to me. I had not paid my credit card bill in over a year. I thought it was just going to go away. And I had to go to some kind of hearing I was supposed to go to some kind of hearing settlement, but I owed like $4,500. It was insane. I eventually contacted the company and came up with a plan. But this was the lowest I ever felt. This happened on a day I was supposed to go to a graduation party, a retirement party, and pop by a wedding. Very, very busy, hectic day. But this ruined it. And I remember going through that and saying, I do not want to go through this again. So I started taking work a little bit more seriously. My priority was working as many hours as I possibly could, pay off this debt as quickly as I could, and then start to build a nest egg to protect myself, to have in case things got bad again. And this was so great that if the other two weren't so severe, this would be my number one. But these were so great. This lesson, this loss that became a lesson was so great that it changed the way I moved and operated. Now, I'm a lot more careful with my money and how I spend it. Like, my bills are my priority. I really don't spend a whole lot of money on myself. Maybe I buy myself dinner once a week, some kind of takeout, but that's the extent of it. I don't just willy-nilly spend things. If I don't have money, I don't just willy-nilly spend it on material possessions, stuff that, I don't really need. It doesn't really benefit me. I handle my bills. I got my credit score up. I'm maintaining it. And while I'm not working as many crazy hours as I once did, I have a lot. I live within my means now. And it needed to happen. It absolutely needed to happen. As bad as it was in the moment and as stressful as it was until I paid off that specific debt, I got my life, my financial situation in order. And now I'm a lot better off for it. My number two is, what do I pick here? It's like a 1A, 1B, kind of 1C, I guess. Let's do this. Let's talk failed relationships, romantic relationships. I've had a lot of those in my day, whether it's been in pursuit of a significant other or being in an actual relationship that has fallen apart at the seams. And there's one that was harder than others, and I want to say that, again, I understand my part in it. I fully understand my part in it. And I'm not completely innocent like I portrayed on social media or I told everybody. But my previous relationship to the one I am in now ended in catching my significant other cheating on me. And I won't go into specific details because it's not fair to them. And in their mindset, they were probably justified, and I'm not going to disagree with that. All right? I'm not going to sit here and shame them for that. I can't, because I know that I wasn't perfect either. But when relationships end, there's two ways to go about it. It's one, what do I have to do to become a more likable person and to find a relationship that what can I do to change to become, because I wanted to be married. I wanted kids. I wanted family. But obviously something wasn't clicking because things kept failing. I kept having these bad relationships, or they end bad. And the other one is to really view, change the standard, change the standards that I do have. My standards now versus 10, 11, 12 years ago are much different and much higher, because I know what my value is. I understand what my value is, and that's my goal. Like that's my bare bones metric for my current relationship. But getting cheated on is rough. It is earth shattering, and ironically enough, I've never told anyone this, but it was. How do I word this properly? So when the date this happened, this occurred, is now replaced, ironically enough, 11 years later and to the hour with the birth of my son. Same day, 11 years later, same time frame that I identified what was going on. It broke me. But also there's some kind of, it's like I guess there's a lesson in that not everything has to be bad forever. Because now I look at that date as one of the most important days of my life. And instead of one that I used to view negatively, I view it in a more positive sense. And it's crazy how that worked. It's absolutely unbelievable. So that's my number 2. And number 1, I know this is going a little bit long, but there's a lot of lessons with these failures. My number 1 is experiencing death. Okay, when you're around death, I have not had the fortune of not really experiencing death all too often, but I have experienced it, and it's been hard. Great grandparents when I was really young, but the first one that really affected me was my Mima in 2008. And not a day goes by where I wish she was still here, especially now as a father. I think about if I had just 5 more minutes with her right now, how I just want her to spend all that time with my son so he can meet her and she can meet him. There is no worse feeling than knowing you can't speak to somebody or you can't interact with somebody. There's no worse feeling. Like you just can't do it anymore. And obviously, like these friendships that I had that broke apart, they can be repaired. But death is eternal, and it's insane that like she missed my senior year and didn't get to see me get married or do pro wrestling or do any of this podcast crap that I do. And most importantly to me, become a dad. Like I would have loved for her to see that. My dog passed away in December. Almost made it 10 years. I got him 10 years. I got him on Christmas Day in 2014, and a week into my final stretch of family leave, not even a week. It's supposed to be this month where I'm spending time with my kid and my dog Prince, and he gets really sick, and we have to put him down, and it is horrible. And now that my kid's moving, like now and crawling, like I always had these visions of them, like interacting with each other in that way. Now that he's more mobile, like how fun that would have been to see those two interact. But you can't go back on death. And the lesson here that I learned is to really cherish everybody now. Give people their flowers now. Be around people now, because you don't get that opportunity back. Tell people how you feel about them now. And stop, like, don't wait till it's too late. And don't wait till it's too late. Don't leave, like, regret. Like, I tell people probably excessively that I love them. All right. And some say it back and return that favor. Some don't. And I don't care. I say it because I mean it. And because I want people to know that if, God forbid, something happened to me, or, for my own conscience, if something happened to them and I don't get that chance to say it anymore, then I knew that I did everything in my power to relate to those people how I felt about them. I know it sounds kind of confusing. I'm getting a little emotional now, but cherish everyone's here. Like, I don't I don't waste time on holidays with people I don't necessarily care about. Like, holidays are family time for me. Like, that's the most important thing, because someday there's going to be a holiday where those people aren't around and I'm going to miss them. Just, yeah, don't wait till it's too late. So there it is, everybody. We got